Okay, I tried fixing my hair like a million times and it's just not working. Hi everybody and welcome. So today we're gonna be playing with some Natasha Denona makeup, and I'm really excited because if you guys follow me for a while, you guys know that I'm a huge Natasha Denona fan. And she recently came out with the new palette. This is the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. It comes with 15 shades, and I'm going to show you guys the swatches and everything. So I am going to be creating a look with this palette today, as well as I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite products from the brand. I have foundation, concealer, face palettes, whatnot. So if you're excited about this video, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you're notified every single time I post. And without further ado, let's get started. Now from Natasha Denona, I don't own any primers, so I'm just going to use my regular primers. One of my favorites, the NYX Bear With Me. I really do enjoy it to use it whenever I'm going to be doing makeup with a little bit of a higher coverage, because it's very hydrating and it is very sticky, so whatever you put on top, it's gonna adhere very nicely. And now for the pores, I'm gonna be using this one by Makeup Revolution. This one is the Pure Blur Primer, and same, I've been loving this primer for a very long time now. I just use it on this part right here. First I kind of like rub it, but then I like to press it in just to make sure that I kind of fill in all those pores. After I prime my skin, I'm going to be using this foundation by Natasha Denona, Transformatte Pore Vanishing Matte Foundation. I have mine in the shade 31W Light Medium Warm. I have tried this foundation a couple times. I really do like the finish that it gives the skin, but the color, it's a little bit orange for my skin tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze it in the back of my hand. And you have to make sure that you shake this foundation very nicely before you actually apply it. And I'm going to start to blend it in the parts where I need the most coverage. Lately, my chin has been going through it. This whole mask situation has not been helping me lately. And I don't know why, because I wasn't having any issues. But the past 2 months, I would say, my skin has been going through it. Now this foundation dries very quickly, so you have to make sure that you work in sections and that you work pretty fast. This foundation has a very nice matte finish. If you have dry skin, I would not recommend something like this, because it does have a very dry kind of powdery feel in the skin. If you have combination skin, you just have to make sure that you prep your skin properly, hydrate the areas that are more dry, and then just use something very grippy on the areas that your skin, it's a little bit more on the oily side. But overall, if you have oily skin, combination skin, I think this foundation would be perfect for you. It's not a super thin formula, but it does feel very lightweight on the skin. As you guys can see, it's you can see, especially here on my neck, that this is a little too warm for me, and it can pull a little bit orange. So if you have similar skin tone than me, you're probably gonna want to go for something a little bit lighter and a little bit less warm. So now for concealer, we're gonna be using the Natasha Denona Transmatte Concealer, and I have this one in the shade 7Y. This concealer, you have to make sure that you shake it very well before you actually applied it, because once it's been sitting for a couple days, it starts to like separate and it looks kind of strange. This is what it looks like once you open it up. I really like the little applicator. It's really nice, and as you guys can see, it's a little bit too light for this foundation, but we're gonna make it work. The formula on this concealer is super thin, and it feels kind of like if you're applying an oil to your eye, but it's not oily whatsoever, which is quite interesting. I'm gonna grab a brush and I'm gonna start to stamp it in. This is another one that has very nice coverage. A very little goes a long way. Now to set my under eye, I'm going to be using this one by Tatcha. This is the Silk Powder. And I think this one is it just comes in one shade. So I'm just going to grab a little bit and tap the axis and then apply it under my eye. This concealer does crease if you don't set it, so you just have to make sure that you set it almost immediately after you have applied it. Now to set the rest of the face, I'm going to be using this one by Shandakai. I'm just going to grab a little bit with the same brush that I used to set the under eye, and then I'm just going to apply this all over the skin. This foundation, you necessarily don't need to set it because, like I said, it does dry more in that powdery finish, but I like to just set my face just to make sure that nothing moves around, but you necessarily don't need to if you don't want to. And this powder is actually very, very nice. It's very blurring and it just makes your skin look like porcelain. So pretty. For contour, Natasha Denona does have a contouring palette. It's this one right here. I've always been curious to try it, but whenever I would want to buy it, it was either out of stock or there was a time that it was on like major clearance and it sold out so quickly, so I couldn't get my hands on it. The one that I do have, this is the Natasha Denona Tan Bronze and Glow palette, and when you open it up, this is what it looks like. Well, this is what mine looks like. It comes with a cream glow base, which is kind of like I would say it's more like a highlight slash bronze shade. It does come with a super glow powder, and you do get a highlight, and then you get a bronzer slash blush type of shade. So normally that's the color that I use to kind of give myself a little bit of a contour as well as bronze my skin. So I'm gonna be using it on this brush and we're gonna give it a go. This palette is very nice. When it first came out, I would use it non-stop. As you guys can see, mine is pretty old and I really do enjoy it. So I'm just gonna start by tapping this shade. I love this powder. It's very smooth. It's super buttery. The shade, it does pull a little bit warmer, as you guys could see. So depending on your skin tone, this might be more of a blush shade for you. If you have more of a light skin tone, it might be a little too warm for you. But if you use a very small amount, I think you should be fine. But as you guys can see, these are so pigmented and they look very nice on the skin. I really do enjoy it. If you don't like that kind of like warm bronze, well, this probably won't be for you. But I really do love the way that it makes my skin look. As you guys can see, you can kind of sculpt the skin as well as give it a bronze at the same time. So that was the main reason why I would always reach for this, because showing my routine. And I don't have any look in mind. I'm just going to play with the palette. I'm going to use as many colors as possible. Didn't apply any eye primer. I just used my concealer and then I set it with a little bit of the same powder that I used to set my under eye. So that's what we were working with. And I really want to play with these colors on this side because I feel like warm tones, we've seen Natasha Denona do a lot of very nice warm tones. But in terms of like the cooler tones, I personally have not played a lot with them. So I want to start with the shade Breath. It does crumble a little bit. And the brush is not picking up a lot of color. That color blended very nicely. It is very powdery and there is a ton of fallout, but it does look very nice. Now for the crease, I'm gonna be going with this color right here. And like I said, I'm just playing with the palette. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like the way that this is gonna look. with a liner brush, something like this. I'm gonna dive into this color right here. It's very pigmented. It looks very pretty. Should we go with the line here? I don't want to mess it up. I want to, but I'm not sure. Okay, for the center, I'm going to be using this color right here. We could step here, but I don't want to. I think I want to go with this color right here and apply a little bit. So let me go and apply some lashes, some mascara, and I'll be right back. Okay, 3,500 years later, I think I managed to put that on the lashes. I haven't been wearing a lot of makeup lately and I did lose practice. So now for the bottom lash line, I'm gonna grab something like this. I'm gonna start with this color right here. And now I'm gonna go back with the small brush and I'm just gonna use whatever is remaining on the brush from that teal shade, and then I'm gonna apply a little bit of mascara. And now for the blush, I think I'm gonna go with for this shade right here. And I'm gonna apply just a tiny bit this color right here. For highlight, I'm gonna use the same brush I used for my powder, and I'm gonna apply a little bit of this color right here. Now these highlighters are very, very intense, so use them wisely. And this is how the makeup turned out. I was actually very pleasantly surprised with the palette. At first, I was a little skeptical because of this shade right here. It is a little bit harder to get the color that you see on the pan. You do have to kind of build it up, and perhaps use a white base underneath would help you achieve that specific color. But other than that, everything else blended very nicely, super pigmented as per usual. I don't think I've ever been like super disappointed, or I've never really tried anything from Natasha Denona that I didn't like. Normally, all her products really worked very nice for me, especially the eyeshadow palettes. Would I recommend this palette? I think the palette, it's beautiful. It has really good quality. I really love the color payoff. In terms of the shades on this palette, I do really like that she incorporated something a little bit more green, something a little bit more cool tone with some warmer shades. So I am going to compare it with a few of the other Natasha Denona palettes that I have, just so that you can give yourself an idea and see if this is something that, you know, would add to your collection. This one is the Sunrise palette, side by side. As you guys could see, you have some similar tones. It's not necessarily the same These are a little bit more warm, a little bit more reddish, a little bit more purplish compared to these. Now compared to the bronze palette, which was her last year's summer release, this is what they look like side by side. As you guys can see, the bronze palette has a little bit more gold tones, but overall I feel like this one, it's a little bit warmer and a little bit more on the bronze, as the name says. Here is where I thought there was some similarities, but once you swatch them side by side, they're nothing like it. This one is the Natasha Denona Coral palette, and this is what it looks like next to it. So in that sense, I feel like you can see it a little bit better on this side. You do have some shades that are slightly similar. The Metropolis palette. Now, when I opened this up, I did notice that you are able to see a little bit more of a pattern here, especially when it came down to the greens. So when you look at it like this, there are some shades that are slightly similar. You do get a little bit of shades that will complement each other. You also get that cream to powder formula with that dark tone. I'm not saying you have to run out and buy the Metropolis palette, but if you do own the Metropolis palette and you've been thinking about this one, I feel like in this one you do get a little bit more shades that could kind of look a little bit more similar compared to all the other ones, especially when it came down to this shade right here, this one right here, and of course a little bit on the shimmer shades. So I do feel like if perhaps you're trying to make a decision and you already own the Metropolis palette, maybe you don't need this one, but you know, it would be up to you. Or if you don't own the Metropolis, or you're trying to make a decision between the two, the Metropolis, it is a little bit more expensive, but you do get more products. So it all depends on your preference, and I feel like the Metropolis is just, even on the green tones, they're a little bit more on the warmer side of things. So yeah. Now as far as the foundation and concealer, these are definitely have a matte finish, so if that's not something that you're into, maybe this won't be for you. I personally like it, not for every day, but I do enjoy it, especially if I'm gonna do photographs, or if I have a special event, or even in the summertime when I tend to get very sweaty. I do live in a very humid climate, so something like this really does help to keep the makeup in place for a little bit longer. You do have to be careful when you use this. Like I said, you do have to make sure that you shake them very well. As far as like your primer options, something very grippy is the best way to go. And then when you set it, obviously pat and not dragged. That it's also a very helpful tip, because the first times that I tried it, I didn't really know how to use it, and there is definitely a learning curve. But other than that, these are very nice. And then in terms of the face palettes, I really enjoy the little ones. I think these are amazing. The blush one, you get a cream product, and you get 2 cream blushes and a powder blush and highlight. And I think if you've never tried any of Natasha Denona's products or blushes, I think something like this would be perfect, because you get multiple products in just one palette. As far as the bronze one, I think this one, it all depends on your skin tone. I feel like if you have a darker skin tone than me, maybe this won't be for you, but if you have similar skin tone to me, or a little bit lighter, I think you can definitely benefit from something like this. The highlight on this one, it's very natural, but it looks very pretty, especially for everyday, which is the reason why I was very into this palette for a while. And then the big blush palette, this one, it's very nice. There was a time where that diamond powder was so popular. Everyone was talking about it. So when this palette came out, it was one of those things that I fell in love with immediately. I love blush and I love highlighter, so something like this, same. If you've never tried any Natasha Denona products, I think something like this would be amazing. And sometimes Sephora would have it discounted, or even the Natasha Denona website will have it marked down. So I feel like if you've never tried any of her products, I think something like this would be amazing. As far as like her smaller palettes, if you really don't want to invest in getting a big one, starting with the little ones, I think it's a good option. I know a lot of people say that the formula is not the same. I personally have never had a problem with neither the little ones or the middle size, because I don't own any of her larger palettes. I think the largest that I have is a Metropolis palette, but still the shadows are about the same size as the $65 palettes. So for me, all the ones that I've tried, I really love. I've really have been enjoying them. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments if the Zendo palette it's gonna be a purchase or a pass, or let me know if you like the eye makeup that I created with it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.